This is a 4-pack of Toolbox foam. I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you $50 for the 4-pack. So in the box, you get the instruction little sheet here. It's pretty simple. You basically draw a line around your tool, and then you cut it out partway through the foam and excavate layers of foam. You might notice there's some black layers on the outside and then 2 red layers on the inside. The idea is if you cut down like partway through, you're going to have red showing. This is, I think, the 1-inch thick foam. So yeah, it's just about 1 inch there. So this is probably great for box wrenches, things that are relatively shallow. I believe they also sell thicker foam for things like drills and bigger items. But the idea here is you want to set your scalpel or razor knife down to kind of probably halfway through this to leave a little red behind it. So size-wise, we're at 22 by 18, and there's 4 of these 1-inch sheets in. So this is a high density foam. I can squish it with my fingers, but it bounces right back. And it's supposed to last a long time. It's not supposed to like fray. So when you cut it, you get a piece out, but you're not going to have a lot of flaky pieces. Not included, but necessary for installation is some type of a white or silver light colored marker to mark around your tools, and then some cutting blades. So you might need a thick one for long cuts. It's good to have a little narrow one for doing angle cuts and doing sharp corners. I like this style because I can set the blade depth to a specific depth and then cut into the foam to that depth using the end of these guys as a guide of how deep I want to cut into the foam. I've got this US General toolbox, and unfortunately the drawers are just an inch wider than these guys, so the foam is going to float around inside the drawer just a little bit. I will have to cut it to length appropriately. So this guy is really, really easy to cut. If you have a sharp blade, it just goes right through it. I was expecting to have to pull a lot more on that, but that was just super easy with a new blade. I guess it'd be too much to ask that this offcut is exactly the right size for the narrow drawers. Alright, I have all my metric wrenches laid out. A couple of extras will go in that gap on the side. Now the more tedious part will be drawing around them all and then cutting them all out. Alright, it took a while. Had to go get a brand new Sharpie, but everything is traced out. So I set my blade length to be about 1 thick tool width here. That happens to be about halfway through the red, so it's like the black in the first red layer. As I get to the super tiny wrenches here, I might make it narrower and only go down just to the red. Alright, I got the top layer off pretty easily. That works pretty well. I think I cut deeper than that, but I think just 1 layer of foam is going to work pretty well. It's sticking up a little bit back here, and it's pretty much flush right there, but the drawer has a little bit of space above this. I think I could peel up this red layer as well. Let me try it for this big, it's the biggest wrench I have. Well, kind of. I think it's easier to separate the black layer from the red layer. Maybe I didn't get quite deep enough to do the exact center of the red layer, but I'm pulling things off, but it's not coming up super easily like the black layer, because that black layer just peeled off the red layer real easy. Alright, 1 down, 24 to go. Alright, so I started off with a brand new blade, and it's still cutting very, very easily here. You just kind of move it right through everything. As I get down to the smaller wrenches, I might move to the narrower blade as opposed to the big one. But it's working pretty well for these large wrenches. I'm just kind of following along with my lines, and then just kind of powering through those corners there. And then you just peel it up. think I did a slightly better job there. I ripped some of the foam out. Here I'm getting little black pieces, except at the very beginning. Here I have a little bit of black piece there, but I kind of ripped it out in the middle, so it went all the way down. And I'm not bothering to cut out little bits here for the box ends. Definitely want a new blade for this. I switched over to my small one to try out the small thing, and it was kind of ripping. So I'm going to snap a couple sections off of this blade to get down to a sharper area. Alright, for these wrenches I tried cutting a little bit less deep, but this is pretty much the minimum amount you can pull out. So super little tiny wrenches here are going to be slightly lower than the level of the foam there if you push them all the way in. I mean, if you just kind of lay them in, they're fine. Alright, you can learn from my mistakes. The drawer doesn't come all the way out, so the very back bit of foam is kind of underneath these little drawers ahead of it. So I'm going to have 3 wrenches in the back that'll be a little bit more difficult to get in and out, but who uses a 7mm metric anyways? Alright, so that took some time and effort, but it wasn't difficult. Alright, time for the big reveal. Ooh, shiny. And I can put these extras right in there, because invariably at some point I will take a wrench out and lose it, and then you'd better hope you have an extra one that's the exact same size to put back in. Alright, so definitely an organizational upgrade. You know, the foam isn't too expensive. It's more your time and effort drawing things around all your tools and cutting things out. This 1-inch foam is great for wrenches. I'm sure it'd work well for sockets. You'd probably want the thicker foam for things like drills, and maybe I think a hammer would work in this 1-inch foam. But you know, you want the thicker stuff for thicker, bigger tools. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this.